this is one of my favorite things to do, and that is to analyze a race. Love it when you have heart rate power meters, and this is what the athlete has been preparing for a really long time. Now, race execution for pretty much all of us could use some work, right? We spend all this time training, very little time racing, that when we get into the race, we're feeling good, we're feeling excited, and we usually do it wrong. That's what I find. And with this athlete, I was here at this race with him, and Continental Champs, it didn't go so well. Right.
Yeah, I can see a couple of blue bubbles next to the heart rate and power.
Yeah.
Down there on the right-hand column.
Let's have a look at that. So we're not looking at duration or anything really like this. This is when we get into the nitty-gritty, right? So, okay, so he not happy at the end, which is kind of a bummer because you want to go to your important races and you want to feel good about it. And one of the things I see here, peak best ever 1 minute power at this time. What the heck is going on here? So let's click on that. Okay. Now, we have a hour and 10-minute race here, and we had our third best ever power in the first 1.5 minutes. Okay, so for me, not great.
Yeah, especially just looking at 5-minute power and 6-minute power. 6-minute especially. There is almost a 200 watt differentiation between 6-minute and 1 minute power, which shows the level of effort that was put into the first minute of this race.
Yeah, it's brutal. And you might be looking at this and you might be thinking to yourself, but that's what you got to do in a race. But no, you don't have to. This is what everyone else does. And despite what they might say on when they show the race recaps on TV, the start is not that important, because what can happen is if you go too hard at the start, you can just totally blow up and not ever recover. So if you dig too deep, you're not going to be able to buffer that lactate, get rid of that acidic environment, and be able to create energy aerobically as efficiently as if you went nice and steady. So,
not to mention utilizing a lot of that stored resources, which is your glycogen.
That's always the first thing I say is like, okay, let's make sure you don't start as hard next time. Is a really hard thing to get across to an athlete. But okay, let's look a little bit more at these climbs. Okay, so you can easily see that every climb is separated. And usually what I'll do is I'll go into like a middle climb and I'll look at the average and normalized power in that climb. Like, how does that relate to what they're doing? So I can't actually remember what this athlete's threshold was at this time. It was quite a few years ago. But this is usually around your zone 3 for your climbs within.
Well, I can see there, Matt, the intensity factor is 0.98, so it must have been around 300 watts-ish.
One of the other things that I look at, and remember, so let's try and bring across the information that we know about heart rate. So when an athlete digs too deep, their heart rate doesn't recover, right? So the heart rate doesn't come down quickly. And this is what we expect, especially in mountain biking, when we start coasting a lot. So if we zoom in on this downhill, so obviously there's vibrations that we need to damp. That was part of the research that I did, so that it doesn't drop down all the way. But we can see that this coasting or this downhill was around 1 minute and 40 seconds. So the heart rate dropped from 196 to 178. Wow. That's actually pretty good, especially for a mountain bike race, to drop that quickly. And for us, that shows that this athlete is really fit, right? Aerobically developed. So that's good. They didn't completely blow up, but going way too hard in that first minute, they dug too deep. And I really think that affected the outcome of this entire race.
Yeah, Matt, so I see you've kind of highlighted one of the middle sections, and just eyeballing it from the outset, it looks like some of the climbs near the end aren't completed at as high a power output, where probably you'd want, in these kind of races, especially around this duration, to be able to pick up your power, apply attacks, and put pressure on the competition.
So we can easily do that. We can compare. I'll just highlight probably the second climb to see what was happening. So about 2 minutes at 380 normalized. And then we'll go back to that same climb. See what happened. Try and get it just right. So I highlighted a little bit less time, but we're looking at 350 normalized. That is a big difference. And then we look at this final climb. definitely dropping power. So
yeah, well, when you can see 250 or less than 300 watts at 188 heart rate, it's not like any less effort's being put in for the power. And the fact is that whatever has occurred due to incorrect pacing, and pacing that we have data to try and improve. Because for this athlete, regardless of their threshold and regardless of the fact that getting fitter could help them achieve a better result, we have this glaring, obvious position at the start of the race, which has caused a lack of that, or a withdrawal of resources that is now no longer able to be applied. So whether that is heat and the rate of heat accumulation, or whether that's the rate of glycogen usage, or the buildup of lactic acid and acidity within the body, there's multiple factors which we can deep dive into by looking further. But right now, we know the science from the previous 2 chapters. We know how to analyze the data. We've identified the key issue, and we can use that in moving forward and prescribing a workout that may not be specific to any kind of stimulus, but practice in maintaining, what would you call it, Matt? Appropriate starts?
Definitely. And this is a huge problem. We see it all the time. And so we saw, if we circle back all the way to chapter 1, we talked about how long does it last when we exercise in something like zone 5. And we can't maintain that energy production before we really need to pull back and recover. And if that happens in a race, well, we don't want to have to recover mid-race. We want to keep going and finish strong. So definitely could use some work.